The 80s were wild for motorcycles, like absolutely bonkers. You had German bikes ruling the world, Japanese manufacturers coming out of nowhere like ninjas, and American iron making noise and going fast in straight lines. From game-changing engineering to pure badass styling, we're counting down the most legendary motorcycles of the 80s. And trust me, some of these rankings are going to surprise you. Number 15, the 1981 Moto Guzzi 850 Le Mans Mark III. This is the Italian heavyweight. If a Ducati is a delicate ballerina, this is a bare-knuckle boxer in a tuxedo. This is the bike that proved you could have Italian style without Italian fragility. The original Le Mans defined the 70s, but the Mark III perfected the breed for the 80s. It features the legendary 844 cubic centimeter transverse V-twin engine. The cylinders stick out into the wind like a muscular chest. It makes 76 horsepower. It has a shaft drive that is strong enough to power a tank. This bike destroys modern bikes because of its character. Modern bikes are smooth and sanitized. The Le Mans is raw. When you crack the throttle, the torque reaction tries to twist the whole bike to the right. It feels alive. And the sound? The induction roar from those massive Del Orto carburetors right under your knees is intoxicating. It is a deep, sucking growl that turns into a bellow at 7,000 RPM. It handles like it is on rails. It is long, low, and stable. It was designed for high-speed stability on the autostrada, cruising at 120 miles per hour without breaking a sweat. It also featured Moto Guzzi's famous Integral linked braking system, where the foot pedal operates both a front and rear disc, decades before modern ABS systems figured it out. It is quirky, it is heavy, but it handles with a solid confidence that makes modern plastic bikes feel cheap. While classic Ducatis have become unobtainable for mere mortals, the Le Mans is the working man's exotic. Originally costing around $3,000, it was a premium machine. Today, it is the bargain of the century. You can pick up a clean Mark III for $8,000 to $10,000. It is mechanical art that will run for 100,000 miles if you change the oil. But maybe you want that power in a package that looks less like a brick and more like a chopper from the future. Maybe you want to cruise at warp speed. Number 14, the 1987 BMW R80G/S. This is the genesis, the big bang of adventure touring, the motorcycle that saved BMW from extinction and created an entire genre of vehicle. Before this bike, you had a choice. You could ride on the street or you could ride in the dirt. BMW said, why not do both? G/S, Gelände, Straße, off-road/street. It was a revolution. It features a 797 cubic centimeter boxer twin engine. It makes 50 horsepower. It has a 5-speed gearbox and, crucially, the world's first single-sided swing arm on a production bike, the monolever. This wasn't just engineering, it was witchcraft. It reduced weight, increased rigidity, and let you change the rear tire in minutes. This bike is a tractor. It is not fast. Top speed is maybe 100 miles per hour if you have a tailwind and a prayer. But it is unstoppable. The suspension is surprisingly plush. It soaks up potholes, rocks, and small cars. It feels agricultural in the best possible way. It vibrates with a reassuring, rhythmic thud that tells you it will run forever. Maintenance? It is a joke. The cylinders stick out in the breeze. You can adjust the valves with a screwdriver and a wrench while sitting on a log in the middle of the Sahara. It has a shaft drive, so there is no chain to snap in the desert. And it has a pedigree that money cannot buy. This is the bike that Hubert Oriol rode to victory in the Paris-Dakar Rally. It proved that a heavy German twin could fly across the dunes. These are now legendary. A standard R80GS is a solid investment. You can find a rider for $9,000. But a genuine Paris-Dakar version with the big tank and the single seat, you are looking at $20,000 or more. Some pristine examples have sold for $50,000. But maybe American-style cruising isn't your thing. Maybe you find the chrome tackiness a bit too much. Maybe you want German efficiency. Maybe you want a bike engine that is literally a car engine cut in half. Number 13, the 1983 BMW K100Rs. This is the flying brick. The bike that proved BMW could build something other than a quirky boxer twin. This is the bike that lasts longer than the pyramids. BMW looked at the Japanese inline fours and said, "Yeah, we can do that, but we will do it sideways." They took a water-cooled 1,000 cubic centimeter four-cylinder engine and laid it flat on its side longitudinally. Why? Low center of gravity, obviously, and to make the drive shaft run in a straight line. It was genius. This bike is indestructible. There are K-bikes out there with 300,000 miles on them. The engine is basically from a Peugeot car. It has Bosch LE Getronic fuel injection in 1983. While other bikes were struggling with carburetors that went out of tune if you looked at them wrong, the BMW started instantly, every time, in any weather. It whirred like a spaceship. It didn't roar, it hummed with efficient malice. Original price? $7,000. It destroys modern sport tourers because it is simple yet sophisticated. It doesn't need a firmware update. It doesn't have an electronic suspension that costs $4,000 to replace. It has a shaft drive that outlasts religion. It vibrates a bit at certain RPMs, sure, but that's just the bike purring at you. It handles with a stability that feels like it is carved from granite. It is the ultimate apocalypse vehicle. When the zombies come, the K-bike will still be running, carrying you and your gear at 100 miles per hour across the wasteland. But maybe German engineering is too clinical. Maybe you want air-cooled simplicity, but with Japanese speed. Maybe you want the best sport tourer ever made, a bike so good they forgot to stop making it. Number 12. The 1984 Yamaha FJ1100. This is the king of the air-cooled fours, the bike that refused to die, the armchair that broke the sound barrier. Later becoming the FJ1200, this bike is a legend. Yamaha built an air-cooled 1,097 cubic centimeter engine that was so good they kept making it for 2 decades. It made 125 horsepower. It was marketed as a sport bike, but it was really a hyper tourer. It was low, long, and stable. You could sit on this bike at 140 miles per hour and drink a cup of tea. It had a steel perimeter frame that was stiff and strong. The fairing was aerodynamic but protective. Original price? $4,200. Why does it destroy modern bikes? Torque. This engine pulls like a freight train from 1,000 RPM. You don't need to shift gears. You just twist the throttle and the horizon comes at you like a video game. The power delivery is instant and meaty. And because it is air-cooled, it is ridiculously easy to maintain. No coolant changes, no radiator fans, just massive cooling fins that look cool and do the job. It is a comfortable couch strapped to a rocket. Modern sport tourers are too tall, too heavy with gadgets. The FJ is pure riding bliss. But big bikes are heavy. Wrestling a 600-pound beast isn't for everyone. Maybe you want to channel your inner fighter pilot. Maybe you want the bike that started the middleweight wars. Number 11. The 1985 Kawasaki Ninja 600R. Before this bike, 600cc meant commuter bike. It meant boring. After this bike, 600cc meant race replica. This is the genesis of the Canyon Carver. This was the original baby Ninja, the GPZ900R. It was the first middleweight sport bike to have a liquid-cooled 16-valve inline-4 engine. It made 75 horsepower. In 1985, that was unheard of for a small bike. It was light, it was agile. It handled like a bicycle with a jet engine strapped to the frame. Original price? $3,300. It destroys modern 600s because it has character. Modern 600s are peaky, uncomfortable track tools that hurt your wrists after 10 minutes. The Ninja 600R was actually a decent street bike. It had a comfortable seat. It had anti-dive forks, which didn't really work, but they looked incredibly cool. It had 16-inch wheels that made the steering lightning fast, sometimes too fast. It was twitchy, nervous, and exciting. It represents the moment the super sport class was born. Every time you see a Yamaha R6 or a CBR 600R, you need to bow down to the Ninja 600R. It started the war. It brought the Top Gun style to the masses. You didn't need to be a millionaire to own the fastest thing on the block. You just needed a Ninja. But Kawasaki wasn't the only one playing the game. Honda was watching, and Honda was about to drop a bomb that would change styling forever. They were about to wrap the world in plastic. Number 10. The 1984 Suzuki GS1150E. You might think the 80s were all about plastic fairings and neon graphics, but at the start of the decade, big naked muscle was still the name of the game. Before the sport bike wars truly began, there was the era of the drag strip king. Look at this thing. It is not a motorcycle. It is a monument to heavy industry. It is the size of a small apartment building. This bike was built for one thing and one thing only: dominating the traffic light Grand Prix. In the early 80s, Suzuki decided that aerodynamics were for wimps who couldn't hold on. They built a 1,135 cubic centimeter, air-cooled, inline-four monster that produced a wall of torque so thick you could spread it on toast. It made 119 horsepower. In 1984, that is enough power to reverse the rotation of the Earth. It had a massive square headlight that looked like a microwave oven bolted to the forks. The dashboard looked like the control panel of the Millennium Falcon, full of warning lights and square gauges that screamed high-tech in the most analog way possible. Original price, $4,500. Why does it destroy modern bikes? Because it is honest. Modern naked bikes are filled with computers. They have traction control, wheelie control, slide control, and throttle maps to keep you safe from yourself. The GS1150E has a throttle cable connected directly to your adrenal glands. If you twist it too hard, you flip over. Simple physics. It is reliable because the engine is built like a bank vault. It is air-cooled, meaning there are no radiators to leak, no water pumps to fail, and no hoses to burst. It is just metal, oil, and explosions. The feeling of riding it is like wrestling a bear that is on fire. It vibrates, it roars. It smells like unburnt hydrocarbons and fear. It is glorious. But speaking of styling, sometimes styling is everything. Sometimes you don't care about aerodynamics. Sometimes you want a bike that belongs in an art museum. You want sharp angles. You want a sword. Number 9. The 1981 Suzuki GSX-1100 Katana. This is the most radical motorcycle to ever come out of Japan. It was designed by a German target design team. It still looks like it is from the year 2050. It is a weapon. Just look at the lines. The sharp nose, the integrated tank and seat, the silver paint. It looks like a sword, hence the name Katana. When Suzuki unveiled this, people gasped. They thought it was a concept bike. They thought it was a joke. But Suzuki, being crazy, said, "Nope, we are selling it exactly like this." Underneath the wild bodywork was the bulletproof GSX-1100 engine, 1,074 cubic centimeters, 111 horsepower. It was the fastest production bike in the world when it came out. But nobody talked about the engine. They talked about the look. Original price, $4,500. It destroys modern bikes because it has soul. Modern bikes are designed in wind tunnels by computers to be perfectly efficient. The Katana was designed by humans with rulers and passion. The riding position is terrible. It stretches you out like a torture rack. The windscreen does nothing. But who cares? You look cooler riding this than any person has ever looked on any other machine. It is an icon. It is mechanical art. It tells the world you don't care about comfort, you care about style. But art is nice, technology is better. What if you took a race engine full of gears and exotic metals and put it on the street? What if cost was no object? Number 8. The 1984 Honda F1000R. This was Honda's first attempt to beat the world with a V4. It was expensive. It was heavy. It was glorious. It was a technological tour de force. This was the Euro superbike. It featured the legendary gear-driven cams. Listen to that sound. Whir. That is the sound of precision engineering. No cam chains to stretch, no tensioners to fail. just gears meshing perfectly forever. It sounds like a turbine. It had a 998 cubic centimeter V4 engine, making 122 horsepower. It was the fastest bike in the world for about 5 minutes. It had quick-release wheels for endurance racing. It had carbon fiber reinforced fairings. In 1984, it cost a fortune. It was the bike you bought if you were a wealthy connoisseur. Original price? $5,800. It destroys modern bikes because of the build quality. Everything on this bike feels like it was machined from a solid block of aluminum. The paint is thick and lustrous. The dials are beautiful analog clocks. It feels expensive. Modern bikes feel like cheap plastic toys compared to this dreadnought. It is a heavy beast, weighing nearly 600 pounds, but once you get it moving, it is stable and unstoppable. It feels like riding a guided missile. But speed wars were heating up. Kawasaki was tired of losing. They decided to build a bike that could break the sound barrier. They needed a bridge between the old world and the new. Number 7. The 1973-83 Triumph Bonneville T140. This is the last stand of the British Empire. This is the bike that looked the Japanese superbikes in the eye, spat on the ground, and lit a cigarette. By the mid-70s, Honda and Kawasaki were building spaceships. Triumph was still building Triumphs, but they decided to go down swinging. They took the legendary Bonneville, bored it out, and created a 744 cubic centimeter parallel twin. It finally had a 5-speed gearbox. It finally had a disc brake on the front, because stopping is important. It made about 53 horsepower, but specs are for nerds. This bike wasn't about numbers, it was about attitude. This destroys modern retro bikes because it is the original bad boy. Modern Triumphs are smooth, fuel-injected, and reliable. Boring. The T140 is the bike Richard Gere rode in An Officer and a Gentleman. When he rolled up to the factory to sweep Deborah Winger off her feet, that was a T140. That moment alone sold more motorcycles than any marketing campaign in history. It is the definition of rugged cool. Riding it is a visceral battle. It vibrates. At highway speeds, your hands will go numb and your mirrors will just show a blur of the past. It leaks oil. Enthusiasts call it automatic chassis lubrication. It requires you to tickle the carbs before starting. It smells like gasoline and unburnt hydrocarbons. But the sound? That low, thumping British bark is music. It feels mechanical and alive in a way a modern Honda never will. Here is the best part. While the earlier 60s Bonnevilles are expensive, the T140 is the bargain of the classic world. You can pick up a riding example for $6,000. Original price? Around $1,800. It is the cheapest way to look like a movie star. But pure speed in a straight line is easy. Handling is hard. Yamaha decided to solve handling once and for all. They decided to create the ultimate chassis. Number 6, the 1989 Yamaha FZR1100 EXUP. This is the bike that defined the modern leader bike. It won every test. It was the bike of the decade. It introduced a valve that changed everything. The EXUP, Exhaust Ultimate Power Valve. It was a servo-controlled valve in the exhaust collector that gave the bike massive mid-range torque and screaming top-end power. Before this, you had to choose torque or horsepower. The EXUP gave you both. The chassis was the Delta Box aluminum frame. It was a massive hollow aluminum structure that was stiff as a board. It handled like a 400, but had the power of a 1000. It made 145 horsepower. It was the first bike to truly feel like a modern sport bike. Original price, $7,500. It destroys modern bikes because it feels analog yet capable. You can feel the EXUP valve open under your feet. You can feel the tires digging in. It doesn't have IBS or traction control to save you. It respects you as a rider. It assumes you know what you are doing. And that Delta Box frame is still a work of art to behold. It is a race bike for the road that you can actually live with. It is the blueprint that every modern bike follows, but the original did it with more raw mechanical feedback. But sometimes you don't want a scalpel. Sometimes you don't want precision. Sometimes you want a sledgehammer. You want violence. Number 5, the 1986 Suzuki GSX-R1100. This is the bad boy. The bike for hooligans. The bike that spent more time on one wheel than two. The bike that terrified insurance companies. Suzuki took the lightweight frame of the GSX-R1150 and stuffed a massive 1,052 cubic centimeter engine into it. It was air and oil cooled, SACS, Suzuki Advanced Cooling System. This was genius engineering. Using the oil to cool the cylinder head saved the weight of water pumps and radiators. It made 125 horsepower, but the torque was the story. It had so much grunt it would try to tear your arms out of their sockets in any gear. It was a wild animal. The wheelbase was short. The power was instant. It handled, but it required muscle. You had to grab it by the scruff of the neck and force it into corners. Original price? $5,200. It destroys modern bikes because it is frightening. Modern 1000s are faster, yes, but they are smooth. They are controlled. The GSX-R1100 is violent. It shakes. It roars. It feels like riding a stick of dynamite. It separates the men from the boys. If you can ride this fast, you can ride anything. Plus those dual round headlights, that endurance racer look, it is iconic. It is the grandfather of the street fighter culture. But maybe violence isn't sustainable. Maybe you want perfection. Maybe you want the Honda that journalists refused to return because it was just too good. Number 4, the 1980 Ducati MHR, the Mike Halewood replica. This is the tribute to the impossible. This is the machine built to celebrate the greatest comeback in the history of motorsport. Let me set the scene. The year is 1978. Mike the Bike Halewood, a retired legend, decides to return to the deadly Isle of Man, TT, after an 11-year hiatus. Everyone said he was too old. Everyone said he was washed up. He got on a Ducati 900 SS and he won. He beat the mighty Hondas. It was a fairy tale. To celebrate, Ducati released this, a street-legal race bike that looked exactly like Mike's machine. It features the legendary 864 cubic centimeter bevel drive L-twin engine. It has desmodromic valves. It makes about 75 horsepower, but numbers do not matter here. This bike destroys modern bikes because it is uncompromising. Modern sport bikes try to be comfortable. The MHR hates you. The gas tank is long. The clip-on handlebars are low. The turning radius is non-existent. The full fairing, painted in the iconic red, green, and white Castrol livery, traps the heat, but then you kick it over, and yes, you have to kick it. The sound of those Conti mufflers is not noise. It is thunder. It is the sound of Bologna. It is deep, guttural, and violent. When you are tucked in at 130 miles per hour, you are not just riding a motorcycle. You are reliving history. You are Mike Halewood flying down Bray Hill. It vibrates with a mechanical soul that no computer-controlled modern bike can ever replicate. These are not just motorcycles, they are blue-chip investments. In 1980, this was one of the most expensive bikes you could buy, costing around $3,500. Today, a Series 1 MHR is the holy grail. You are looking at $35,000 for a decent one, and upwards of $50,000 for a mint example. This is it, the podium, the holy trinity of horsepower. We have cleared the amateurs. We have cleared the pretenders. What remains are the three kings of the 1980s. You're not ready. Number 3, the 1985 Yamaha V-Max. This is the Widowmaker, the muscle bike to end all muscle bikes. This is the machine that eats rear tires for breakfast and spits out the black rubber chunks as pure, unadulterated fear. The 1985 Yamaha V-Max. Look at the stance. Look at those intakes. Do you see those massive aluminum scoops sticking out next to the tank? They aren't just for show. They are not plastic decorations glued on by a marketing team. They are functional lungs designed to feed the beast. This is a massive 1,200 cubic centimeter V4 cruiser. But it isn't just a big engine. It had a secret weapon, a nuclear option that Yamaha unleashed on the world to humiliate every other rider on the street. It was called V-Boost. Let me explain V-Boost because it is absolute insanity. At 6,000 RPM, a servo motor opens butterfly valves that connect the intake manifolds. This allows each cylinder to suck air and fuel from 2 carburetors at once. It changes the bike's personality instantly. 1 second you are cruising, the next second you are holding onto a rocket. The result? A turbo-like kick in the pants that is violent. It hits you like a freight train. It spins the rear tire at 100 miles per hour. It feels like being rear-ended by a truck. It made 145 horsepower in a cruiser in 1985. That is madness. It was the undisputed king of the drag strip. But here is the catch. The chassis was garbage. It didn't handle. It didn't stop. It had a frame made of wet spaghetti. The front forks were too thin to handle the weight. The brakes were basically wooden blocks that did nothing but suggest the idea of slowing down. But that didn't matter. In fact, it made it better. This bike was about one thing: traffic light dominance. Original price, $5,200 for the fastest accelerating bike on the planet. It destroys modern bikes because it is unapologetic. It doesn't care about your safety. It doesn't care about cornering speed. Trying to turn a V-Max fast is a religious experience. It doesn't care about fuel economy. You will get 20 miles per gallon if you're lucky. It cares about roasting tires, making noise, and scaring pedestrians. It is the American muscle car of the motorcycle world, built in Japan. Riding it is an exercise in restraint, or a glorious lack thereof. It is a legend of pure excess, but there is one movie star that shines brighter. One bike that became a household name. One bike that defined the term ninja. Number 2, the 1984 Kawasaki GPZ900R. I feel the need for speed. This is a quote. It is a mantra. It is the sound of the 1980s screaming into existence. The 1984 Kawasaki GPZ900R. The Ninja. The original Ninja. The bike Tom Cruise rode in Top Gun while racing an 014 Tomcat down a runway. This bike didn't just appear, it changed everything. It split the timeline of motorcycling in two. Before this machine arrived, fast bikes were big, air-cooled dinosaurs. They were heavy, wobbling beasts like the Suzuki GS1100 or the Honda CB1100. They were powerful, sure, but they flexed in corners like a garden hose. They were terrifying for all the wrong reasons. Kawasaki looked at those dinosaurs and dropped a meteor. The GPZ900R was the first modern sport bike. It was compact. It was liquid-cooled. It was aerodynamic. It was the future. Let's look at the heart of the beast. It had a 908 cubic centimeter, 16-valve inline-4 engine. This was space-age technology. Kawasaki famously moved the cam chain to the side of the engine, a first, just to make the engine narrower so it could cut through the wind like a scalpel. They used the engine as a stressed member of the steel diamond frame to save weight and increase rigidity. The result? 115 horsepower. That might not sound like much today, but in 1984, that was nuclear. It was the first production bike to top 150 miles per hour. Think about that. Doing 150 on bias ply tires and suspension technology that was basically 2 pogo sticks. It was the fastest production bike in the world. It held that title against bikes with much bigger engines. Original price? A mere $4,400 for the fastest vehicle on the road. It destroys modern bikes because it has presence. Modern sport bikes look like angry insects. The GP's 900R looks like a weapon. It has that rectangular headlight that screams 80s. It has the legendary anti-dive forks on the front, which didn't really work but looked incredibly cool. It has the full fairing painted in firecracker red and gunmetal gray. It is liquid-cooled, so it is reliable, but it still has that 80s rawness. It proved that a smaller, smarter, water-cooled engine could beat the big air-cooled monsters. It is a movie star you can actually own and ride every day. It is still fast today. It is surprisingly comfortable. And when you pull up to a cafe, nobody looks at the modern Ducati. They look at the Ninja. They ask if you are Maverick. It is pure Hollywood magic on 2 wheels. But there is one bike that sits above them all. The Holy Grail. The machine that wasn't built for profit, but for glory. The machine that Honda built to prove they were the masters of engineering. Number 1. The 1987 Honda V-Max 750R. The RC30. This is it, the Mount Everest of motorcycling. The most desirable Japanese machine of the 80s. Maybe ever. This is not a motorcycle, it is a religious artifact. The 1987 Honda V-Max 750R, the RC30. This wasn't a street bike. It was a full-blown race bike that Honda condescended to put lights on just so it would be legal. Honda built it for one reason: to win the newly formed World Superbike Championship. And it did. It crushed everyone. It won the first two championships back-to-back. It dominated the Isle of Man TT. It was untouchable. It cost $15,000 in 1988. That was double the price of a normal sport bike. That was the price of a house in some places. Why? Because Honda didn't build this for profit. In fact, rumor has it they lost money on every single unit they sold. This was an exercise in dominance. Let's look at the spec sheet because it reads like a letter from the future. Titanium connecting rods. On a production bike, that was unheard of. Gear-driven camshafts that produce a distinct mechanical whine like a supercharger. A hand-welded, hand-beaten aluminum fuel tank. Quick-release front forks. A single-sided swing arm, the Pro Arm, designed specifically to allow for rapid tire changes during endurance races like the Bull D'Or. The bodywork? It wasn't cheap plastic. It was hand-laid fiberglass. It made 112 horsepower. That doesn't sound like much today, but it put that power down with surgical precision. It features a 360-degree Big Bang crank firing order. It doesn't scream like a normal inline-4. It drones. It growls. It sounds like a World War II fighter plane taxiing down the runway. It is a sound that makes grown men weep. It destroys modern bikes because it is hand-built. It was built by the legendary Honda Racing Corporation, HRC, not on a standard assembly line. Every part is bespoke. Every bolt is special. Modern Superleggers try to capture this magic, but the RC30 is the original. It feels telepathic to ride. It is physically tiny, compact, and perfectly balanced. It is pure mechanical perfection. It is the high water mark of the golden age of motorcycling. If you own one, you don't own a bike. You own a piece of history. You own the soul of Honda. Do not turn off the engine yet. Click this video right here to continue the ride with us. It is absolute insanity. Go on, click it. I will see you there. And don't forget to subscribe and like.